start the fight, breaking down the walls in the dead of night. I don't come for peace, I come for the storm. Fanboys melt quick when the truth gets warm. Saw content's high, I'm collecting those tears. Just got started, but I'm cutting through fears. I'm not here for brand deals, I'm not for sale. I expose your lies, rip off the veil.
Hey everyone, it's the Vigilante and I'm back at it with another game review. Today we're diving into a game I honestly had zero plans to play, South of Midnight. I kept hearing mixed reactions, some folks saying it was an absolute train wreck, calling it one of the worst games of the year. Others were out here praising it like it was some artistic masterpiece, and that kind of back and forth usually raises a red flag for me because when a game is that diverse, it usually means it did something interesting. So I thought, why not? I've got Game Pass, and I always keep it real with my reviews. No hype bias, no blind hate, just a fair breakdown of the pros, the cons, and where things could have been improved. And after spending some serious time with South of Midnight, I've got to say, this game is an actual hidden gem. Is it flawless? Not at all. But it is anywhere near the disaster some are claiming? Absolutely not. I think a lot of the hate is coming from people comparing it to the games that had double the budget in marketing. We've got to be fair here. South of Midnight is a $50 title, not a $70 or $80 title. It wasn't made to compete with the next triple mega franchise. It's a more grounded, personal, artistic project, and when you see it through the lens, it really shines. The world, the style, and the soul of South of Midnight is a third-person action-adventure game, but it's not just another clone of what we've seen 100 times. What makes it stand out right away is its stop-motion-inspired art style. The animation was done with the help of Clyde Henry Production, who used real mannequins to capture a handcrafted, eerie yet beautiful aesthetic. It looks like nothing else on the market right now. And then there's the setting. This isn't your typical fantasy land or dystopian sci-fi city. This game is deeply rooted in the Gothic American Deep South, mixing folk tales, eerie swamps, and mythical creatures inspired by actual southern legends. You play as Hazel, a young woman who becomes a weaver, someone with the magical power to mend what's broken, both physically and spiritually. After a hurricane devastates her hometown of Prosperia, Hazel gets pulled into the supernatural realm filled with mystery, myth, and sorrow. The narrative is heavy on atmosphere, is dark, lyrical, and character-driven, backed by a musical score inspired by Southern blues and folk. It's less about bombastic set pieces and more about emotion, legacy, and personal growth. This is where South of Midnight really caught me off guard. It feels like someone poured their heart into this game. Hazel's main power is weaving. You use it in combat, puzzle solving, and exploration. Combat involves using your weaving skills to bind enemies, create openings, and interact with environmental elements. It's not the most complex system in the world, but it got its charm. What I appreciate most was how they tied gameplay mechanics into the game's theme. You're not just fighting enemies, you're literally mending a broken world. That's powerful stuff when done right. Traversal is smooth and puzzle solving has enough depth to keep things interesting. Plus, every element feels tied to the larger story. It never feels like filler. Even the creatures you face, like the Haints, are rooted in southern folklore and personal trauma. Now let's talk about the pros. I've got to give a massive shout out to the monster designs in this game. They're phenomenal. Every creature you encounter oozes creativity and atmosphere. You could tell the developers poured so much passion into making each one feel unique, eerie, and straight out of a nightmare. But like a dreamlike nightmare, if that makes sense. What's wild is the clear inspiration from works like Alice in Wonderland and James and the Giant Peach. I mean, I was actually surprised when I stumbled upon a giant peach in the game. Like, come on, that can't be a coincidence. The visual storytelling, the surreal design of the environment, enemies, it all blends together into this twisted Southern Gothic fairy tale. It's weird, it's whimsical, and honestly, it's kind of brilliant. Another thing that stood out to me was the voice acting. It was spot on. Hazel feels grounded and genuine, and the supporting cast fits the tone of the game perfectly. The voice feel lived in, like these characters have real history in this world. Nothing feels overly theatrical or out of place. They nailed the accents, the pacing, the emotions. It adds a lot to the immersion, especially when you're already in such a rich and unusual setting. And speaking of the setting, this is one of the game's biggest strengths. The choice to root the story in American Deep South, complete with haunting swamps, old folklore, and monsters that feel born from myth and memory. It was a bold move and it pays off. There's something incredibly atmospheric about exploring these eerie backwoods and bayous while unraveling Hazel's story. It's rare to see a game embrace a region like the South with this level of love, weirdness, and attention to detail. Now let's talk about the cons. Let's start with the biggest issue for me, the combat, or rather the lack thereof in the early game. The first third of the game is painfully slow. You're walking around, doing basic tasks, solving minor puzzles, and for a while it honestly feels like you're playing a walking simulator. There's barely any combat or meaningful action until you hit chapter 5, and that's when things finally start to pick up. But by then some players might have already tapped out. That's most likely where the bad reviews come from. Now, I know some people love the unique stop motion inspired visuals, but for me, this art style just doesn't land. The animations feel choppy, stiff, and unnatural. Whether that was due to the claymation process or the budget limitations, I don't know. But the end result looks more like a beta build than a finished product. Hazel's character design doesn't do justice to the actress she's based on. She is absolutely stunning, but in the game, Hazel designs feels like a stylistic misfire, a more realistic, detailed design that actually honors how beautiful the actress is could have helped with immersion and relayability, because I promise you guys, if you look her up, she is magnifico. Bugs and glitches are also a problem. From animation stutters to characters freezing midline, textures not loading, and even getting stuck in the environment, this game has rough edges that need more polish. And finally, the music. The soundtrack, while regionally accurate in tone, doesn't match the game's darker vibe. A more haunting gothic horror-inspired score would have amplified the atmosphere far beyond the country and jazz mix we got. And this is how they could make this game a 10 out of 10. If they would have just smoothed it out, picked a different art style that was more fluid and immersive, added a better soundtrack that actually matched the gothic horror vibe, and fleshed out that painfully slow first third of the game, this could have been a masterpiece, and I mean that. The ingredients are there. The world, the characters, the tone, the lore, it's all brimming with potential, but the execution holds it back. And here's the truth, I don't see them fixing it. I don't expect a big update or overhaul. This feels like one of those games that will quietly exit as a cult title. Something a few people love, a lot of people overlook, and sadly never quite lives up to what it could have been. Now, despite all the flaws I mentioned, the slow start, the underwhelming combat early on, the awkward animations, and the strange music choices, I still found myself enjoying South of Midnight. And that's the important part, because at the end of the day, what's there does work. The monster design, fantastic. The setting, unique and dripping with atmosphere. The voice acting and story, on point. And even though the art style didn't fully work for me, I can respect that the developers took a risk and tried something different. My final verdict is a solid 7 out of 10. And before you all come for me, I know there's certain people that are very big Doom fans. Now, I do think Doom the Dark Ages is a better overall game, but let's not forget, that's a $70 title built for a bigger audience with a much bigger budget. South of Midnight, on the other hand, is a $50 game, and that price point matters. If this game had launched at $70, I'd probably be giving it a 6, maybe even a 5.5, because the rough edges would be a lot harder to overlook. But at $50, it's an easier to appreciate what they did get right. If you have Game Pass, I say check it out. If you're looking for something different, something experimental with real artistic heart, even if it's a little rough around the edges, South of Midnight is worth your time. Now it's time to read off the members of the channel. We got Koros Objective, Maximilian Pegasus 88, Mad Fox 94, Watari, Shade Milkman, Oh No is Justin, Brian Payne, J Wesby 65, Andy Ritz, Sea Stars Piplup, Cam, and Austrius Lane. Thank you so much for becoming part of the crew. And if you truly enjoy this content, why don't you think about becoming a member? It's only $1 a month. You get special emotes, badges, and you get a shout out at the end of each video until it becomes too long, and then it'll be turned into a credit roll. And also, I got an awesome merch lined up for you guys. I got amazing shirts, hoodies, I got coffee mugs, I got desk mats, I got a bunch of different kinds, so why don't you check it out also. And please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, guys, stay vigilant.
You can cry in the comments, but you won't survive. Like and subscribe if you feel that vibe. We're